It's going to have to, what law enforcement is telling me is that they're going to have to rethink their efforts of how to apply resources to try to get on the front side of individuals like this who may be planning acts of violence.
Brad, given everything John and Pierre just said, how concerned does law enforcement have to be now about copycats, given the high-profile nature of this shooting?
I'm sorry, Diane, you were cut off, so I didn't hear the question. You mind repeating?
I'm just wondering, given the string of events, right? We just heard John talk about political violence, Pierre talk about other instances of similar crimes here. Now we're seeing this essential assassination in front of thousands of people, one shot fired. How worried does law enforcement now have to be about copycats?
Well, extremely worried. I don't think it's any surprise that shortly after this assassination, you had at least threats called in to Black universities and to the Democratic National Headquarters here in D.C. The real dilemma, Diane, for law enforcement is if you look at, a number of the events that Pierre just went through, you're talking about individuals. You're not talking about a group. They may affiliate with people who think like them, but it's individuals who commit these acts, much like mass shootings that we talk about. So it's what's going on with that person. And the real trick is, A, how do you know about them? And B, more importantly, how do you know when they have decided they're going to go harm someone, like what happened Wednesday? And that's really tough to get in front of. I mean, you can't listen to every conversation, go to every social media site. It's just, it's not realistic to begin with. And so it comes down to, once we know we're at the shooter, we can have a bigger conversation about what I'm about to say. But was there indicators around him? Did he make comments about Charlie Kirk? And in particular, he was going to be at this university on Wednesday. When did he acquire this weapon? Where did he get it? Was it right before this occurred? There are indicators many times with people that they're going to go do something. Now, you have to be careful here, because just because they say they're going to do something, many times they're never going to do it. But you have to sort those out. But more importantly, you have to know about them. And if you don't know about them, the fallacy is, as a community sees a troubled person, there's really nobody to sort of check on that person. You almost need law enforcement and the mental health folks to team up. And there are versions of that in some jurisdictions to sort of keep track of troubled people. And not so much that you're trying to lock them up, but many times just getting them help. But, I don't know how you pull that off, because we don't have enough resources as it is in law enforcement to pull them off and to keep track of people I'm talking about is probably not realistic. But that's why this stuff falls through the cracks. It's really no one's fault. It's just that it's the nature of the type of attacks you're having, which are individuals.
And I want to go back to Jacqueline Lee, who's there at Utah Valley University where this all happened. Jacqueline, what is the university saying, given that whole climate, about the security level at the event and their role in the investigation now?
Yes, they've said that they're fully cooperating and they're working in tandem with local officials. But I have to say the biggest thing here, as we talk about, whether or not this person of interest is in custody, who it is, what the motivation was, is I think the reason why we're here. And when you look at how influential Charlie Kirk was, as we heard from John earlier, he was only 31 years old, yet he amassed a huge following online. On TikTok, he has more than 8.8 million followers. And part of why he was so effective and why so many people are mourning his death is because he was able to reach this huge youth population that had not registered to vote and who felt like he amplified their voices. Over here, what you cannot see on camera is there is a growing memorial that started yesterday. And there's a sign there that says, "Thank you for being our voice when we felt silenced." And I think that's the sentiment that we're hearing from people both here on the ground as well as across the country, is as to why Charlie had such power when it came to getting people to vote, and with his conservative advocacy groups. When he founded Turning Point USA, that was in 2012 when he was only 18 years old. And he made it his mission to travel across the country and engage in that political discourse. He would debate people who differed in political opinions. When he was here at the university, he had launched his American Comeback Tour. He was going to be visiting more than 1,800 universities across the country. And he had this prove me wrong table. So what you saw that was posted online and part of his social media following is you would see in the video this split screen between him and any student who wanted to debate him on any topic. We also spoke with the individual who was an undergraduate who was in the middle of questioning him and debating him right when the shooting took place. And that individual said that he wanted to talk about mass shootings. He also wanted to talk about transgender issues. And I think that speaks to the power of Charlie Kirk and his influence. Is because he didn't villainize the other side, because unfortunately with the political polarization that we've been seeing, that is what occurs. But what Charlie did is he would take the time to engage in that debate, and that is why he was so well respected across the country. Diane.
And I just want to update for viewers just joining us. In the bottom left corner of your screen, we are awaiting a press conference in Utah where we expect officials will confirm that there is a person in custody in connection with the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. Sources are telling us that right now. We heard the president a little bit earlier this morning saying as much on Fox and Friends as well. Again, Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at Utah Valley University in front of a group of thousands of students. He was holding an event where he takes questions from people. He not only speaks, but also takes questions and sort of debates members of the audience or welcomes them to debate him. And in the middle of that, he was shot with one bullet, authorities say, from over 100 yards away. And this is the video that the FBI released last night showing someone running across a roof of that building, kind of scaling and then jumping down off the building and running off. And now we are hearing from sources that they have a person of interest in custody. And our chief Washington correspondent, Jon Karl, is here. Jon, interesting to hear this news broken by the president himself.
Yeah, a measure of just how closely involved he is with this case. Charlie Kirk, not just a political supporter, but a true friend, almost family member, almost member of the Trump family. I think that what Jacqueline said is very important about Charlie Kirk. He developed a following, I think in large part, and his following accelerated over the past year. Make no doubt about it. To see him at that college campus, not a particularly large university with a crowd that large, what attracted him, what attracted so many people to him is the willingness to engage with those on the other side, which is really increasingly rare in our divided country. He relished that. I wouldn't say that he didn't demonize the other side, because he did a fair amount of demonization, but he was willing to listen and to try to rebut. He went over to Oxford recently and did a big debate over there, and took some really hostile questions and engaged in the back and forth. Again, it's so much what we see today in our politics, particularly on the right and on the left, is people living in their own little ecosystems, their own bubbles, where they only engage with those that echo their own views. And Charlie Kirk certainly was around people that echoed his own views, but he went and engaged those who had diametrically opposite views, and did so with a little bit of glee. I mean, look at him in the "Prove Me Wrong" tent. That was his signature. Prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. Come on, take it in. Prove me wrong. And sometimes people would come up and go after him. The crowd, and usually the overwhelming crowd, was people supportive of Charlie Kirk. But he would, if they started booing the person that was asking questions, he would say, "Shh, let them talk," and he would ask his follow-up questions. Just the kind of thing that is, as I said, it's incredibly rare, unfortunately rare in our politics today.
Jon, that event was the beginning of what was set to be a whole tour of these events. What do you think happens to not only just Turning Point USA, his organization, but that movement in general? What does it mean to now have him gone in this way?
Look, Charlie Kirk was incredibly influential. And I think that arguably he, more than anybody outside of the president himself was responsible or made possible Donald Trump's victory in 2024. But you heard Donald Trump say something today that I think is probably correct. That in death, Charlie Kirk's influence may even be greater. He's become a martyr for this movement. And the president this morning spoke about how so many people have come forward and saying, what do we do to help keep Charlie Kirk's legacy going? Who do we donate to? What causes do we support? How can we help keep Turning Point alive? And I think that Charlie Kirk in death is going to be somebody who you are still going to hear a lot about, who is going to be a rallying point for people on in the MAGA movement. I suspect the Turning Point will continue. Now, that said, he was an incredibly capable figure as an organizer. Really amazing for a guy in his 20s. He was in his 20s when he started Turning Point.
When he was just 18.
When he was 18, but he built that organization to the point where it was the most important grassroots organization in the country during the most important presidential election of our lifetimes.
And for anyone just joining us, I just want to reset here. On the bottom left corner of your screen, we are looking at a press conference which is about to start at any moment there in Utah, where we are expecting officials to confirm that a person of interest is in custody in the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. That's what sources are telling ABC News right now. And I want to bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, what's the latest here?
We're told that this individual effectively turned himself in at the urging of his father. This is a college-aged individual, a person of interest, now in custody. We're waiting for the authorities to confirm they believe it is the suspected shooter of Charlie Kirk. His father recognized his son from the images that law enforcement officials had circulated through the press, and then encouraged his son to turn himself in. At first, we're told that the son did not want to do it. So the father ended up calling a pastor who also happens to be affiliated with the U.S. Marshals Service. The U.S. Marshals Service ultimately took the individual into custody, and we're waiting for the authorities to publicly identify him. We have a name that we're working with, that the authorities have. We're waiting for the authorities to officially identify the individual, a college-aged individual whose father recognized him from those photos, encouraged his son to turn himself in. And when he hesitated, we're told the father ended up calling a friend, a pastor who's affiliated with the U.S. Marshals Service, and it was the Marshals Service that took the individual into custody overnight.
We heard officials saying the "if you see something, say something" mantra appears to have worked here, and we, of course, are awaiting that press conference now to see what else officials have to say about this person in custody. And our chief Washington correspondent, Jon Karl, is with me here on set. John, we were talking before about President Trump breaking this news earlier this morning. Just goes to show the high-profile nature of this case and how close Charlie Kirk was, not only to Donald Trump in terms of politics, but also to the family. And this was someone that Don Jr. compared to being another son in the family. What does that mean for moving forward? We have the FBI director there in Utah showing the priority investigation-wise. What are they planning in terms of the funeral? What are you watching for next?
Well, first, this to me is the most important high-profile manhunt since the marathon bombing in Boston, which you remember basically shut down the city of Boston and was tracked, hour by hour by then President Barack Obama. Okay, I guess we're ready to start the press conference here.
Okay, and now we're going to pause for a moment for the network to join us, because Utah officials are about to give an update on that person of interest in custody in the Charlie Kirk killing. And again, we're going to pause for a moment for the network to join us.
This is an ABC News special report.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We are coming back on the air with some major developments in the deadly shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Authorities are about to hold a press conference after President Trump announced on live television that he believes there is a suspect in custody, saying, quote, "I think we have him." The search for that person of interest overnight intensified with the FBI releasing new images showing him dressed in a dark hat, sunglasses, a dark shirt with an American flag on the front. The FBI called the person in that photo a person of interest. And then this video from right after the shooting, authorities say it shows someone running across a roof, then scaling and jumping to the ground, and then you can see that person running off. Charlie Kirk was speaking at an event when a gunman fired a single shot from about 100 yards away, sending that crowd of about 3,000 people running for safety. And now we are listening as authorities update, and we think will confirm that there's a person of interest in custody. Let's listen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At today's press conference, we will hear from Governor Cox, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Sheriff Mike Smith. We also have with us Utah DPS Commissioner Bo Mason, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles, and local and federal law enforcement partners. Following the remarks today, Governor Cox, Director Patel, and Commissioner Mason will take questions. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there has been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who's worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah. But I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilize these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where at my direction, the FBI released a never before seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly. And I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver to Governor Cox and his team. Last night, we had a total of approximately 7,000 interviews, 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI. And we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. The FBI Salt Lake field office, along with our offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, our headquarters component in Quantico, all participate in the FBI. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, the special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI. This is a very much an ongoing investigation, as the governor said, and we will continue to work with state and local authorities to develop the investigation, to provide them the evidence they need for their ongoing prosecutions. And we will be here to answer every call they absolutely have, as long as it takes, for as long as we need to find and apprehend whatever suspects were involved in this crime. Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Thank you, and good morning. I would just like to take a few minutes as the sheriff to express my gratitude for everybody who has played a part in this investigation. As you know, it's been a vast, a complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. It has been so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal. Our Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who's standing up here with us, has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us. I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support and you gave it to us. We needed your patience and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family because that's what they need, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you everybody for everybody that have stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country. And violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. This bad stuff happens. For 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us, that somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last two nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend and author, Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. Like, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country. And I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Please speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson, when he turned himself in.
I cannot speak to that.
How do you interpret the agreements on casing?
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not. And by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself.
Please. About this level of hatred that was put to expression. Beyond that, is there anything in your view that you discovered that may have radicalized, changed him to prompt him to commit such a horrific?
There's nothing more that we can share at this time.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating with a friend on Discord about the gun. Do you anticipate any more arrests?
We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests.
You believe he acted alone?
Yes, but the investigation is ongoing.
Can you detail at all how he came into custody of police and where he is right now?
Yes, so right now, Mr. Robinson has been booked into the Utah County Jail. You heard the president this morning report that he was taken into custody, that his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. For those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him in. Please, I'll go here. I can't share any more than what I've already shared. Yeah. So how we obtained the gun was found here. So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County.
Is he talking with authorities and did he discuss a road?
I'm sorry? We don't have any information that would lead us to believe that. Yes, in fact, it was just released. Yes.
With authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here. I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history. Yes. The question is, what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history, or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s. And having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets, we are not wired as human beings biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. I had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together. The Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be. I mean, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there, but this is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m. in timeline that Director Patel gave us led to the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection between those two events?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he changing outfits?
Correct. Yes. So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here. Yes.
Suspect was from Utah. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about where, and was he a student here at the university, and is there any history of mental illness?
Yeah. So I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County, in the southernmost part of our state. Thank you, everyone, for your great work in getting this information out. I would just say, process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that basically we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
We are listening there to authorities in Utah now confirming a suspect is in custody in the shooting death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. That was Republican Governor Spencer Cox saying blatantly, "We got him," at the very top of that press conference, identifying the suspect as Tyler Robinson. They haven't revealed his age, but yesterday they said they were looking for someone college-aged, and now they're saying that Robinson was brought to their attention by a family member, that a family member contacted a family friend with implications that Robinson had been involved in this shooting, and that family friend then contacted law enforcement. And now they're saying they have evidence showing Robinson arrived on campus at Utah Valley University at 8:29 in the morning. At some point, he changed clothes. Investigators are saying he executed that shooting and then changed again after leaving campus. Now they have spoken to not only his family, but also someone they identify as his roommate. And they are talking more about some messaging on those bullet casings, including a message that say, "Hey, fascist, catch." And now we are getting in that suspect is 22 years old. I want to go over to our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, who's there at Utah Valley University in Utah. And Matt, I want to start with these conversations that law enforcement say they have already had with this suspect's family and roommate.
It seems they've done a lot of work just over the past 12 hours, Diane. And I think one of the important things to note for the public is that the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, said there is no ongoing threat to the public. They believe that this man acted alone without accomplices. So no ongoing threat to the public. And one of those things that you just mentioned, They contacted this roommate. The roommate allegedly showed them messages from Discord, that's a social messaging app, from the suspect, in which he indicated that he had left a rifle of the same description with the scope wrapped in a towel in bushes not far from campus, exactly as authorities had found them, apparently asking the roommate to help him hide it. That interesting note about him coming to campus hours before Charlie Kirk took the stage, about 4 hours before, scoping out the campus, and then changing on top of the roof into those dark clothes before taking that shot. And as that video we've seen for the past 8 or 12 hours, then scampering across the roof, dropping down to the ground on campus, and then sort of jogging and then walking off and melting into the neighborhood nearby, and then changing back into the clothes. And again, both Kash Patel, the FBI director, and Utah Governor Spencer Cox thanking the public for their help. Apparently it was a family member who saw something, who discussed it with Tyler Robinson and convinced him somehow to turn himself in. Apparently there was some give and take, but eventually Tyler Robinson turned himself into authorities, U.S. Marshals, very late last night. And finally, this event is over, although the governor said the investigation is ongoing. Diane.
And I want to bring in Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky, too, because they're painting a picture here from the family, saying Robinson grew more political over the past few years, and even had a conversation just days ago with the family about the fact that Charlie Kirk was coming to this campus. They're also talking more about the physical evidence here, Aaron, revealing more information about the gun and more information on what you reported yesterday about messages on those bullet casings.
It's still not clear what those messages fully mean or how investigators believe they fit into this puzzle leading to the death of Charlie Kirk. But one of those messages found on one of the unspent cartridges along with that bolt-action rifle said, "Hey, fascist, catch," with an exclamation point. You heard Governor Spencer Cox say the intent of that message seemed clear as day. Other messages were a bit more obscure, including one that said, "If you read this, you are gay." Again, these shell casings and the gun have been taken to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia for analysis. The investigators may have more to say on the meaning of these inscriptions a bit later. The authorities also did say that in recent time, the family noticed Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, becoming a bit more political. Although I have to tell you, Diane, we've spoken to some acquaintances of his who said they never heard him talk politically. But according to the family and what they told investigators, he had become more political. And at a recent dinner, he had even mentioned Charlie Kirk coming to the UVU campus. We know that Robinson attended Utah Valley University for about a semester before transferring to a technical college where he was said to be studying to become an electrician. In that dinner with family, Tyler Robinson, according to the governor, told his family he did not like Charlie Kirk or his viewpoints. Diane.
And I want to bring in our Chief Justice Correspondent, Pierre Thomas, too, because Pierre, the FBI director himself is there in Utah. We just heard him talking about the law enforcement response, saying this apprehension came just 33 hours after the shooting. And he mentioned something you mentioned just a little while ago, talking about the critical role that the public played in this arrest.
Diane, this is an incredible story that we saw unfolding at the press conference. Namely, they decide to release the photographs. They believe because the photographs were so crystal clear that a family member or an associate or a friend, someone would see it and recognize the suspect and then reach out to law enforcement. And that's exactly how this went down, according to our sources. A family member, we believe the father, saw the photograph, confronted Tyler Robinson about it. Initially, talked to him about turning himself in. The son apparently wouldn't do it, according to our sources. They then reached out to a member of the U.S. Marshals Task Force who got involved, and then they were able to convince this young man to wait. The marshals showed up. He was taken in without custody. Law enforcement has often talked about how releasing photographs and using the public can be a force multiplier, and that's exactly what happened. The other thing I would point out, Diane, is this. Charlie Kirk is a person who was a friend to not only President Trump, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, but also to FBI Director Kash Patel, who was heavily involved in the MAGA movement before he became the FBI Director. And I was struck by him saying, quote, "To my friend, rest now, brother. We have the watch. I will see you in Valhalla."
Clearly personal to the FBI Director and also personal to the President. And we also heard the governor, Spencer Cox, there talking about the political nature here and political violence in general, saying political violence is different than any other. And now he's calling this a watershed moment, saying it's not clear if this is the beginning or the end of a dark chapter in this country. And I want to go to Chief Washington correspondent Jon Karl on that point, because, John, political violence has become a trend in this country. This isn't just a one-off event.
Powerful words from Republican Governor of Utah, Spencer Cox. He said very clearly there is one person responsible for the killing of Charlie Kirk. One person, it's Tyler Robinson. He said, words are not violence. Violence is violence. This is a direct response to those who are saying that this is to be blamed on the, quote, radical left, that this is something that needs to be blamed on what people have said about Charlie Kirk or said about Donald Trump or said about the MAGA movement. And his statement that this is a watershed moment was very powerful. The question, he said, is, do we escalate? Does this lead to another spiral of violence, or do we find an off-ramp? And as he said that, it's no, I mean, you've been watching social media. We've all been looking at what's on social media. There is very ugly things being said on social media. He said social media is a cancer on our society. Turn it off. Hug a friend, hug a family member, find your better angels. The question he asked, I think, is the question that a lot of people are going to be asking going forward again, is, do we escalate? Does it get worse, or do we find an off-ramp?
And we're already seeing a memorial now growing outside of Turning Point USA, which was Charlie Kirk's organization there in Arizona, as people ask that very question, John. And as investigators will now be asking a lot of questions of this suspect now in custody. Again, that suspect identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. We will have a lot more coverage on this on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. Right now, we'll return to your regular programming. For some of you, that's Good Morning America. And David Muir will be back with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm Diane Macedo. Have a great rest of the day.